In Luke 14, we're given the picture of a man standing at the entrance of a grand banquet hall. It's been filled row upon row of finely dressed table, and upon each and every one of those tables is the richest of foods, meats, breads, wines in abundance and overflowing. Around those tables, around that food, are many, many chairs, most of which have yet to be occupied. The man's servants, those who'd been sent out to spread the message that everything was now ready, come to this feast. They were now headed back with their heads hung low. They'd been unsuccessful. For everyone whom they'd encouraged to come to this great feast had turned them down. They were already occupied. One had a field to look after. One had a flock to look after. One had a wife, and so on. They weren't coming. The banquet hall, by and large, was empty. Perhaps on the slow walk back as these servants were walking, one of them wondered, did we do something wrong in how we delivered this invitation? Perhaps another was thinking, well, I guess we might as well go back and shut the doors and toss the food because no one's coming. Maybe a third was thinking to himself, hey, maybe this feast, this thing that I thought was going to be so great, this thing that I was so longing for, maybe the joke's on me. Maybe it's really not all that great. Have you ever found yourself in a season of ministry that felt like this? You've invited neighbors to church. You've invited coworkers to your community group. You've invited friends to read the Bible with you. And you are met with a chorus of thanks, but no thanks, I'm not interested. You know that you got this feast of joy ready to be had, this good news that Jesus saves sinners, and it's waiting for anyone who's willing to receive it, but no one has. You start questioning yourself. You start questioning your mission. You start questioning if the gospel truly is the power of God for salvation to anyone who'd believe it. Now, you hear the words of the Great Commission and you just shrug your shoulders and say, I have tried it. It hasn't worked. The banquet hall is empty. If this is you, I want you to take note of what happens next in this parable, because the man of the feast does not take no for an answer. He greets his servants and tells them, go back out, but this time go to a different kind of people. Go to the streets and the lanes of the city. Bring in the poor and the crippled and the blind and the lame. Go out to the highways and the hedges and compel people to come in. And guess what? They do. The poor, the crippled, the blind, the lame, and the outsider by the highway, these would be the people who'd come to the feast, because neither the feast nor the invitation to it was ever the problem. The problem was that all those who'd been previously asked had thought to themselves that they were already quite full. They were full already on what the world had to offer them. A feast? Who needs your feast? Can't you see? I've already prepared my own. I've got a field. I've got a flock. I've got a wife. I've been filled by the world's goods, and I need no other. But the poor, the lame, the outsider, their stomachs were empty. Their hearts were lonely. Their souls were longing to be filled, and thus far the world had given them nothing. So when they hear the invitation to the feast, for them, it's almost too good to be true. Might it be the same story for you and me? Might it be that our fruitfulness in ministry just as these servants in this parable might only be found in abundance if we are willing to seek those in this world who feel themselves to be empty, needy, and hungry. Might our fruitfulness in ministry only be found in abundance if we are willing to walk the streets and lanes of the city or go to the outsider on the highway. It is my exhortation to you and to me today to consider this. Consider who in your world right now, though they might not be pretty in the world's eyes, not be valuable in the world's eyes, they might just be the perfect person to sit beside you in the grand banquet hall of our Father. The table is set, the chairs are in place, and the feast is good. My exhortation, go find those who are most hungry for it. Let's pray. Father, would you give us courage and boldness in proclaiming your word? And would you give us perseverance? Would we not hang our heads low and shrug our shoulders, but would we continue to run this race and to be your ambassadors in this world? May you give us the grace to have our eyes open to those who in this world feel themselves to be hungry and would love to come to this feast. And would you forgive us for the times where we have not done this? Maybe it's been fear, maybe it's been pride, maybe it's been selfishness. For whatever reason, we have not invited others. Forgive us, Lord. And for all the other ways that we have fallen short this week, we have failed, we have sinned. For all those ways, we come to you now in a time of silent confession.